In 2003, the United States invaded Iraq to stop weapons that didn't exist from a dictator who wasn't connected to 9/11, in a war that would reshape the Middle East for generations. But here's the question most Americans never asked. If the weapons weren't real, why did the war still happen? And why did so many people believe it had to? Today, we're not talking about conspiracy theories. We're talking about documents, policy papers, and what changed after the invasion. Because this war wasn't sold as what it truly was. In March of 2003, Americans were told the invasion of Iraq was unavoidable, that Saddam Hussein had weapons of mass destruction, that he could give them to terrorists. That waiting meant catastrophe. Congress authorized the war. The media amplified the warnings. The public accepted the case. But when the invasion ended, when Baghdad fell, when Saddam was captured, no weapons were found. We're going to ask three questions. What were Americans told? What policymakers actually believed? And what role oil and power really played, quietly, in the background? Because the final answer isn't simple, but it's documented. Before the invasion, Iraq was already crippled. After the 1991 Gulf War, Iraq was under heavy UN sanctions. Its economy was collapsing, and its oil exports were tightly controlled. But Iraq still had something critical. One of the largest oil reserves on Earth, second only to Saudi Arabia. And here's the key point. Iraq's oil wasn't fully accessible to Western markets. The regime was hostile. Contracts were restricted. The country sat outside US influence. That mattered, not as a slogan, but as a strategy. Here's something rarely emphasized. The idea of removing Saddam Hussein did not begin after 9/11.
22, Senate Concurrent Resolution 78, relating to the indictment and prosecution of Saddam Hussein for war crimes and other crimes against humanity.
Clerk will call a roll.
Mr. Abraham. Mr. Akaka.
In 1998, prominent US officials publicly called for regime change in Iraq. They argued Saddam threatened regional stability. Iraq should be reshaped. US power should be used preemptively. This wasn't a secret, it was written down. So when 9/11 happened, Iraq didn't suddenly appear on the radar. It moved to the front. September 11th changed everything. Fear reshaped politics. Americans were no longer asking, is this war necessary? They were asking, what if we're not wrong to act? Inside the administration, Iraq was folded into a war on terror. Even though intelligence agencies found no operational link between Saddam and Al-Qaeda. But emotionally, the connection worked. And emotion, not evidence, drives public consent. This is where the narrative hardens. Claims flooded the media. Aluminum tubes for nuclear weapons. Mobile biological labs. Uranium from Africa. Later investigations found intelligence was exaggerated. Uncertainty was removed. Dissenting analysis were sidelined. Worst-case scenarios were presented as likely outcomes, not because they were proven, but because they were effective. No one said we're invading Iraq for oil. That's not how wars are sold. Instead, the war was framed as defensive, moral, necessary. Major media outlets relied heavily on official sources. Skepticism was treated as weakness. Opposition was framed as irresponsibility. The public wasn't lied to in a single moment. They were guided step by step towards one conclusion. After the invasion, Iraq's oil sector was open to foreign companies. Reconstruction contracts flowed to U.S. firms. American influence over the regional energy security expanded. This wasn't a looting operation. It was something more modern, strategic control, not ownership. Oil didn't need to be seized. It needed to be stabilized under friendly American conditions. When weapons weren't found, the justification shifted. Now the war was about democracy, liberation, nation building. But the damage was done. The occupation collapsed. Violence exploded. The region destabilized. And the original reason for war vanished. Official investigations avoided the word lie, but they confirmed evidence was overstated. Risks were hidden. Certainties were manufactured. The public was not given the full picture. They were given the picture necessary to secure support. The Iraq War destroyed trust in government, destabilized the Middle East, and fueled future conflicts. And it left behind a lesson older than history. Wars are rarely sold as they truly are. They are sold as what people will accept. And once accepted, the consequences last for generations.
The whole issue is from the very beginning till now is oil. America wants to dictate the policies, political policies, economic policies, military policies of the whole region according to its imperialist interests, not to its...
Going to war to control another country's resources doesn't create security. It creates instability, resentment, and endless conflict. When a powerful nation uses force to reshape who controls oil, land, or wealth, it doesn't bring prosperity. It destroys trust, collapses societies, and guarantees resistance. The cost is paid in civilian lives, broken regions, and generations of blowback. History shows this clearly. Wars fought for resources never stay contained, never stay cheap, and never stay justified. They leave behind chaos and a lesson that the world keeps relearning the hard way.